I remember the first time I got my hands on Dark Souls 2. I won a giveaway on a Reddit and the kind fellow Redditor gifted me the full copy of Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin edition with all of its DLC. At the time, I was just a naive little boy that played GTA and Counter-Strike on a daily basis, and the only thing I ever heard about this franchise was just how difficult it was to play. So I downloaded the game, booted it up, made my first character and started my journey. I died roughly 37 times in the Forest of Giants to the ungodly number of hollows that were guarding that place. The rage, frustration and the hatred I felt for this game at that moment was something I experienced for the first time in my life as a gamer. But I got through it, suffered a bit more and finished the game and found something truly special not just within me, but in the genre of those games in whole. It's not far-fetched to say that Dark Souls and SoulsBorne games in general reshaped me as a gamer. After Dark Souls 2, I played all of the SoulsBorne games that have been currently released on PC. But that was not enough, I wanted more. I wanted that feeling of struggle and accomplishment that those games gave me after countless hours of tries and errors with those boss fights. My addiction to those games became so severe that I sometimes dreamed of Bloodborne and Demon Souls being ported officially on Steam. And with Elden Ring a couple of months away from the release, I needed to find alternative fast. And that's where Mortal Shell came in. SoulsBorne games were such a new and fresh take on games and gaming industry in general that they created a whole new genre of Souls-like games. Since the release of the Demon Souls, there were countless Souls-like games that were dropped in the market, with each of them trying to recreate the formula behind SoulsBorne games in their own way. Some were good, some were bad, but in the end, none of them gave me the same feeling of accomplishment that SoulsBorne games gave me. Then the trailer for Mortal Shell dropped and I was really intrigued. The dark atmosphere, creepy looking enemies, the combat mechanics, it looked really similar to how Dark Souls played and looked art direction wise. I couldn't get my hands on it at the time, but I finally managed to play it a few days ago and yeah, it's freaking great. To give you some backstory, this is not a AAA game, nor does it have any sort of insane budget behind its production. This is an indie game created by a group of 15 hardworking veteran devs. I learned that fact after finishing the game and I was even more impressed. So the basic lore behind Mortal Shell is that you are a foundling, a creature that can take over bodies of dead warriors, aka Mortal Shells, aka combat classes of this game. Your main objective is to collect the pieces of the sacred land in order to ascend and leave this rotten world behind. The first thing that caught my eye when I started playing this game was just how beautiful it looked. This game is made by Unreal Engine 4, so you bet your ass this game looks amazing. The tutorial is pretty straightforward. It teaches you the main mechanics, gives you a tutorial boss that kicks your ass, then a big fish swallows you and spits you out in the foreground, the opening area of the game. 10 out of 10 first impression right there. From here, you are free to go and explore as you please. There is a main hub in the game where you find yourself constantly returning though. There is also an NPC called Sista who helps you level up your Mortal Shell and gain some skills. She is basically a firekeeper of this game as well as a checkpoint. Basically, as you progress throughout the game, whenever you find and talk to her, the game will treat that specific spawn where she is as a checkpoint, where you will respawn after you die, so keep that in mind. Gameplay is pretty similar yet different from Souls games. You have a traditional lock-on system, dodge and roll battle mechanics, light and heavy attacks, consumables that get your HP back and so on. The light and heavy attacks can be performed on the right and left mouse buttons. On heavy attacks, the longer you hold the right attack button, the more damage it does. You can also do a combo between light and heavy attacks which lead to unique attack animations, which do bigger and better damage to enemies compared to solely using heavy attacks. There is also an original mechanic of the game called hardening. Basically, you can harden your body at any point in battle to avoid some damage or regain your stamina. It sounds pretty blunt when I say it, but it's actually pretty fun and useful thing to use. I survived a lot of encounters with enemies thanks to this tech. There's also a mechanic of resurrection, like in Sekiro. Basically, when your HP goes down, you will be thrown out of your shell, and for a brief moment, everything will freeze, which gives you some limited time to use to get back to your shell and regain your HP, before your enemies come to their senses and attack you. Now let's talk about the Mortal Shells in the game. They are basically dead warriors who you can resurrect and possess, granting foundlings some abilities as the result. There are 4 main Mortal Shells throughout the game: Horus, Thiel, Solomon and Eldrim. Horus is a starting shell you can find right after the starting the game. It offers good balance between defense and attack. Thiel, on the other hand, is basically an assassin class. It has low HP but ungodly amount of stamina, and he is pretty agile. I mainly use him in the game because he has this ability that you can unlock when the running doesn't consume stamina at all, and the poison attacks heal you instead of taking HP, which is pretty cool and useful thing against certain kind of enemies. SoulsBorne is a more of a heavy shell with a good amount of stamina, health, good durability and high resolve. Resolve is basically a bar you can fill up in the middle of the combat to use some special weapon abilities, and SoulsBorne has a ton of those. So if you are one of the dudes who like to show off and do some special attacks, then this shell is probably for you. And then lastly we got Eldrim. Eldrim is basically a living, walking tank. He has huge HP pool but really low stamina. I would say it's a fair trade, especially seeing just how many attacks he can tank without flinching. So if you are a new player who has trouble adapting to the game, I would say to go for this shell since he has a lot of HP and allows room for mistakes. There are 6 or 7 main weapons from what I remember. I personally use the default hollow sword the game gives in tutorial for a little while before I found and fell in love at the first sight of March's Blade. Once you fully unlock and upgrade this weapon, hitting mobs with this thing feels like dropping down the whole building on top of them. It was extremely satisfying to use, so much so that I didn't even bother using other weapons. I do want to mention another cool weapon called Axe Katana, which can basically turn either into twin blades or into one humongous axe. Though I wasn't sadly able to upgrade it fully before I finished the game, so I can't say much about its full performance. You also have to fight harder the tutorial boss for each weapon you find to prove that you are worthy of using them. There are 5 bosses in the game you have to kill in order to progress throughout the story. The first boss that you encounter, which is called Grisha, is not that hard to beat. I would say he's the perfect introduction and guide to how to fully utilize the gameplay mechanics the game has given to you. Later on, you will fight the more upgraded version of Grisha before you reach one of the main boss fights. The other 3 main bosses are the bosses that will guard each second glad you try to reclaim. They are much tougher than your average Grisha, which each boss dedicates their own different approach in combat. The last boss is the toughest one in the game without an argument. That battle, for me personally, had the most Dark Souls experience I had in a while, so definitely upgrade your gear before you reach the ending. There is also a DLC presented here that opens some repairability options and adds a new weapon as well as a new shell, which is arguably the best shell in the game. That shell is a tutorial boss of the game himself. Harden is OP, my dudes. This shell can be accessed after purchasing second DLC for Mortar Shell. It is basically a combination of all shells, and that I'm saying not just a stat-wise, but in skill tree as well. Literally, you can unlock and equip one skill out of each previously mentioned shell, which leads to some cool customization options. Now let's talk about a few negative aspects of the game, in my opinion. Like I previously mentioned, this game is made by indie devs. That fact is especially apparent in some of the enemies' walking animation, which look a bit wonky and funny from the distance. There's also this occasion when somebody hits you so hard, you literally turn into a cheap ragdoll. All of this kinda cheapens the experience a little bit, but it's nothing to worry about since that happens really rarely. My main gripe and the problem with the game is mostly how confusing the design of Fulgrim is, which is the important part of the game where you will be spending a lot of your time roaming around. At first, it was fun to explore the level, but over time, when you need to find a specific way leading to each one of the 3 temples, it could get really confusing, and the only thing that could remotely ease the trouble of searching the whole area were the visions given to you in the main hub. In conclusion, I really enjoyed my time in the game. I found bosses entertaining, the world felt decent and fun to explore, weapons felt good, and the special abilities were kick-ass. The concept of shells was also a pretty cool idea they came up with, and the hardening mechanic was really fun to use. I played this game to momentarily keep my thirst for Elden Ring under check, and it exactly did that. So the final verdict from me for this game is a solid 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed my time for this, and it was a surprise experience, to be honest. I didn't expect I would enjoy this game so much. If you are a SoulsBorne fan who is looking to play something before Elden Ring comes out, then I really recommend this game for you guys. This game is not a Dark Souls, it is its own thing. Yes, it uses Dark Souls formula that we all know and love, but it modifies and adds a lot of stuff to it to make it feel original. And I applaud to that group of 15 people who managed to accomplish and create such an amazing game. Good job, guys. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching. Do leave a like and subscribe if you found the video interesting, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye!